Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe if you'd like more videos like this. So today we are going to talk about diagnoses out into the new age world. So many of us are conscious, awakened, heart mamas going forth in our life journey, and then we go, oh my gosh, I've now remembered I signed up to have a child and explore the life theme of having a diagnosis, or my child having a diagnosis. So firstly, the main part is let's look at what it is to be an empowered mother in this role. And the first thing is to be able to own that. If you have made the choice or you feel like the universe has set you up to make that choice, this is the first part of our inner work, is to own, okay, yes, not having shame, not feeling bad, all of that stuff that really does come up. So there is inner work there to let go of all of that, to be able to then look in the mirror and say, yes, I have a child with a diagnosis. I did it because of this, this, and this, without the emotional charge behind it. So that is your first step, is to really look at that. It can bring up grief. It can bring up shame. It can feel, judgment, embarrassment, irritation, frustration, all sorts of things. So that's a huge one in itself, just to be able to step forward, because then your child is not sensing that from you, which is the most important thing. So then next we start to look at, why did I get the diagnosis? A lot of the time we signed up for the diagnosis to honor the shadows in our child. So that means that you might have had a really tricky time, challenging, confusing, overwhelming, exhausting time with your child. When mums get a diagnosis, it's just like, oh, yay. Finally, I have something to go out there to the world and say, this is a tricky child, for you to feel like, okay, this is all good. Now, what I do say to mums is you certainly don't need to get a diagnosis to really do your inner work about this is a tricky child, and owning that, whether anyone else believes you or not. But putting all that stress that you've been through to bed, literally releasing it and getting rid of it, because they will bring up a lot of shadows in us, one after the other. That is the point of these children coming through. Any child really, even a pet, that's the main part, is can you make sense of what they are bringing up for you to look at on the inside? So if we are carrying emotions, any stress around this whole scenario, whether your child has a diagnosis or not, there is inner work to be done, right? So then we start to move forward. The less charge we have, the more empowered we are, because we're in a beautiful heart space. That can take years. I did this as far as my son Hayden doesn't have a diagnosis. He went to school as gifted, could have been ASD and ADHD, particularly in the start when he was all on the wrong foods and he was reflecting my stress. But essentially, I've been through those school meetings, sitting down with staff who want to really point out what a pain your child is because they do this, this, and this, or how they're struggling and all of that. And that really comes back to, what energy am I carrying? First, I had to work through shame and judgment. I had to work through frustration at myself. I would try and hold a really empowered space and walk out going, oh, they got me again. So all of that, the sadness of having to go through this, exercising my throat chakra as a mum in standing up for them. But eventually, it got to anger, how dare they do this, and all of that. So that's the stuff to really work through until you're in that place. It's almost like a calm within the chaos around you to go, I'm here. Bring at me what you need to. I'm now trusting of the universe with whatever comes. I know in my heart what to do. I don't need to take it out on you guys. I'll just go with the flow, and that's how things can go forth to your highest light. So that's you in a nutshell, is mamas doing their inner work with anything that comes up as resistance or a challenge with your child. And that's really practicing getting honest. A lot of us try and skip on and haven't gone through the stages of grief, and going back, clearing out all the old junk, all the horrible times that you've had, the dread of your child, which, really took me by surprise when I realized, wow, I actually really dreaded my child. Every morning, what's he going to do to make my life hell today? And actually wanting more than that and going, no, I want to have a heart connection with them. I want to see them in their light. So the third bit I'm just going to talk about is talking to your child about the diagnosis. This again is the throat chakra stuff. We will tuck a lot of stuff under the rug, not look at the elephant in the room when your child has a diagnosis. And the main bit is you must. They know that something's going on, whether you tell them or not, but especially if they carry that label and they know that they have it, The main important thing is to zoom right out, go out to Saturn and look down and have almost a laugh with your child. Did you think you would sign up for yourself to come down here and basically get a label on the things that you find tricky? But you can look at me or your sister or your friend and they find things tricky too. You know, your sister's rude, your sister's sneaky, and whoever else is having their troubles, but they don't have a label. Isn't that ridiculous? And actually deconditioning yourself from what this is all about, like deschooling, de-diagnosing. So even though they've got the diagnosis, you still talk honestly about the crap and how ridiculous it is and how interesting it is from a neutral and curious point. You will know when you get anger rising, when you're trying, this is ridiculous and whatnot. That's coming back to our inner work to let go of that. But when you let go of that and you can really talk truth to your child, they actually sit in that really nicely, because that's all our children want, is the truth. They're sensing the stuff. You might as well break it down for them and make sense of it for them. And that helps to keep you accountable too. Why am I doing this? What's going on? But keeping it open to the fact that you can say to them, you know, this is where it is at now. Obviously, we signed up for this together and we'd go through these things. I wonder why we did that. What are we learning as we go along in this path? But where is our vision? Where are we going to? I wonder what you'll do with this when you're older. And of course, holding that space, they don't have to carry this forever. They certainly don't. Like me, you know, exploring school with my two boys, and you know, eventually we've moved them to homeschooling. We didn't stay there forever, and that's the main bit. Is I went, I don't want to stay here forever, so I'm going to tick off my inner work as quickly as I can. And you could literally feel all of a sudden it was like, I think we're done. And then sure enough, the universe coordinated everything at that point for us to fade away. So again, if you have a diagnosis, really checking in with that. Why have you done it? And really getting honest with your child. So I've had a really tricky time, and when the doctor said, hey, how about we do this? This is why I did it. It's going to bring up some stuff for you, but that is the main point. And when you do that, knowing that it will be gone, it's going to leave your physical body where you've held it in, it's gone. And then you sit in, you know, sunny day then going, okay, so we're going forth. And now I can look in the mirror and say, yes, my child has a diagnosis. We did it because of this, but that's okay. Now, when you get to that neutral point, then you hold a different energy. Other people will not come at you, family, friends, school, nearly as much, because you don't have that magnetic charge. Come at me, I've got charge in here. Do you want to prod this stuff out of me? So that's an awesome place to be. And then as you keep going on, you start to see more truth, and then you start to actually go on the highest path to getting out of this and going, okay, well, what are we here for? There's a lot of mums that are questioning, you know, is it for the medical system because the pediatricians have said yes, and you felt, you know, for some reason, you know, I need to listen to the doctors. Is it the allied health? You know, we need to get therapy. That's the only way that's going to help them. A lot of mums have then started to realize, oh, this therapy, you know, I can't find a therapist that my child actually resonates with. They're doing this stuff that actually it doesn't really change things, or it's not helping me out in my day-to-day life right now. It's not helping me not dread my child. It's kind of creeping along on surface level. And are we wasting time, as far as not necessarily with the therapy, but is my time better spent as a mum doing my inner work? And typically when I've worked with mums, that's when they've realized, I don't have time for this inner work stuff. And we've gone, well, this is a priority, because they start to see that my inner state will, you know, basically project out everything on what happens in my external world. If I'm stressed, everything's going to show up in a really crazy way. If I'm not, everything smooths out. So then what are you doing, you know, when we start to look at, well, where can you save time? Oh, yes. And looking at, have I signed up for a therapist because I felt like I should? Are they telling me what to do? Are they setting the goals? Or is it me as the creator of my own reality? And with my child, is it me saying, this is my intention, this is what I'd like help with? Can you help me to achieve that? And that's taking back your power as the mother. You are the one saying, this is my goal and this wouldn't work for me. No, we don't have time for that. And really exercising your throat chakra, because I know, being a speech pathologist at uni, we get told we are the expert. Hold that, you know, at all costs, that you are the expert and you are telling the family what to do. Problem is, when it meets like this mama doesn't believe in it, even subconsciously, she doesn't have time for it or whatnot. It goes like this. And really, a lot of therapists sit in judgment. The mum won't do this. She's not doing this. But the main part is coming on board together. And the main bit is it's the mum that knows the child best, and you know your whole family dynamic. So that's going the empowered path. And then of course the schooling system, the same thing, and being able to speak up and saying that doesn't suit us, my child is too stressed for that, that's really not helping him when you do this. And really looking at it, just because you have funding, you do not have to use it, nor is it necessarily helpful. I'm going to say that again, just because you have funding doesn't mean that it's useful or necessary for your child. It basically is going to take you on the old mainstream path of doing it their way. Going the new way is looking at the energetics. What do I need to do as far as my inner work as me as a mum? How can I hold that space for my child, especially talking up truth and talking about the elephant in the room from a spiritual zoomed outside? What are we doing? I'm saying this all very quickly. And then the next part is looking at your child's light. This is the part that gets missed mostly, and this is why I carry such a strong message that we do not need diagnoses for child, because it's basically putting a big flag on your child's head to say, this is what's wrong with my child. So everyone focuses there. And you can say, oh, but there's light and whatnot. Mostly the reasons that people are doing it is for funding, because they want to go the old school path. And we take away funding, and that the old school path actually necessarily is the right way. And some people will find the best therapists. I'm not saying the best therapists aren't out there, but what I will say is that we as a therapist are under a scope. We can only go so far in this box before the bodies come down and say, no, you're talking too much, and as far as energetics or outside what you have been taught at uni. And that's where I say a therapist cannot really go much further than that. And so that's where we need to break those barriers and go the new way. So coming onto your child's light, this is your most important role as a mother, because no one's going to do it better than you. And if your child does not sense that you are nurturing and recognizing and holding their light, they will shut it down and they will take it away. And it's not to say you can't retrieve it again, but of course it's much harder. And of course, everyone's got their glimmers of light as they go along. But the main bit is to start to understand our children with a diagnosis. They have a lot of starry energy. And where I talk about this is from my True Essence energetic profiling systems for children and parents. You can take my quiz on my website at heidihosking.com to find yours. And it basically tells you which energy have you got more integrated, star, heart, and earth energy. The quiz will tell you your top two. But where I'm going forth now is with the True Essence, to find your True Essence. Which energies do you carry the most of? So typically the children with ASD, ADHD, sensory processing disorder issues, all of that, it's the starry energy. It relates to starry energy. They're very sensitive, and that goes into their shadow. So for example, autism, a shadow is rigidity. Now that doesn't mean there's not plenty of other people, including me and everyone, that has rigidity in certain ways. But then you look at ADHD, the shadow might be, I can't really be present. And then sensory processing, I carry fear or stress energy in my body. So when there's sensory input coming at me, it's the final straw. I can't take it. And I use that example, if we're really, really stressed and someone's sitting there clicking a pen or, biting fingernails or just tapping or doing something that really irritates you, of course you're going to be more likely to snap than on another day when you're feeling really calm. You can put up with that stuff. So this starry energy, there's shadows there, but also there's light. So the light of the starry energy, and you may recognize this in yourself, shadow and light, is that intuition. It's just connection to the universe, the cosmos, dragons, angels, space stuff, details, really being able to notice details. That might be an excellent memory, but it also can be in art and music. And so, of course, you start to go, oh, okay, it could be people with ASD, but it's certainly not. There's so many of us that carry that starry energy and make it look more functional. So that's why we don't end up with the diagnosis. But our child is there going, hey, I've got this starry energy too. Will you help me to use my light? I'm just thinking what else. So ADHD, they're the wise ones that the brain is just going. And so being in a slow system like school, it can feel dumbing for them and like they want to be out of their body. And so that's when they literally can't hold it together. They're going to lose their mind because it really is so slow. And of course, yes, in the shadows, you know, you can have a wise child who's like, really, yeah, okay, come on, let's get on with this. But then if it goes to the shadows a bit, that's when it can get really, you know, really ADHD as opposed to not. And then the same with the sensory processing. Once you get that stress gone, that's when you just go, I'm really sensitive. I can really enjoy color. I can really enjoy this food. And it's not just that, that links back in with all the other gifts as well. So that's just a little bit as far as the star, heart, earth energy. The children with the, what was I going to say? So I will leave it today, I think. So yeah, the heart and the earth energy we'll do another time, because most of the diagnoses are the children with the star energy. So they are saying, hey, mama, will you look at yourself? Will you find your shadows and work on that, the starry shadows that you might have? And or it may be dad's, and that's another story in itself, and how you hold space for the dad to work through that. But it also then can be the light. Will you look at your own light as a mum and honor that, because it takes one to know one. So your child can only basically unlock their light as you unlock yours, bit by bit by bit by bit. And so that's what happened with my Hayden. Initially, I was just in dread, you know, complete just overwhelmed with him in all his interesting shadows. I worked through this stuff myself every time I got triggered by him, to eventually, then I started to see his light, his little giggle, his little shining eyes, just the cute things that he did. And the more that I did that, then he started to say, hey, I see angels. Like, wow. And so then he opened my mind to the starry stuff, which then went forward, because then he started saying, hey, I astral project and this and that. And then that opened my channels and my intuition even more, because he was holding that starry space. So we worked together kind of like this, if that makes sense. So yes, it's a huge mother-child job, particularly if you're holding space then with a partner and or sibling and all the mix within a family. We are a whole. So if someone's bringing up a shadow, say with the star energy, someone else needs to also be looking at it and working through that stuff and recognizing that. And that can be really tricky to even see it in yourself at first. Many mums I work with cannot see the rigidity in themselves. They can't see their lack of presence or disorganization, but it's there. Sometimes we've been carrying a bit more earth energy, so it kind of makes it look like we're going through life a bit easier than when the starry kids come. If they've got a double hit of star energy and much lesser of the heart and the earth, that's when it looks ASD, ADHD, sensory processing issues, that kind of thing. So that's just a start on the mother-child healing work that I look at, and this whole family web of how we're all connected with what I call this true essence energetic profiling. So that's nurturing your child's light. And as you can see, there's so much work to do there, that once you've started to do that, these shadows, you start to see them and you want to work through them, because you know there's light on the other side of that. It is all pass-throughable. It's not, I've got a diagnosis now with my child, so we're just going to focus on making it through school, or we're just going to focus on making the most of these therapies that we've got. It's much bigger than that, and you can go the higher path very quickly if you can get into this deeper energetic work, which involves really truly seeing your child. And they're asking, hey, will you really truly see yourself and come back to your inner child as well? So yeah, I've got a course starting next week, 7th of July 2020, if you're watching this later down the track. Nurture Your Child's Light. It's 4 weeks, and we're going to go into this. We're going to do the energetic profiling and make sure you really can see your child, and then also yourself, siblings, partner, so you can understand this. And then also we're going to look at the resistance your child brings, anything that comes up and what they're asking you to see, as well as then going into our own inner child and looking at our own light, so that we can actually start to go, okay, I get this. I get what I've got to do to unlock my child. Yeah, and you don't have to have a diagnosis to do this course, of course, because every mum should be doing this for their child, whether at school, homeschooling, diagnosis, whatever. It's actually the new role for the mother, is to really see their child and nurture it, because no one else is going to do it any better than they will. So otherwise, subscribe and stay tuned for more videos. I will be back on again soon, or else follow me at Facebook, Heidi Hosking, The New Way, and or Instagram, Heidi.Hosking. See you, bye.